Well, with the Cup Series getting to the 18th race of the season, it's time for us to go back to school and give out our mid-season grades. I'm Brandon Monroe, and alongside me, as always, is Mark Chavez. And Mark, you're kind of the lead professor for this, so I'm just going to toss it right over to you. Let's set the table for what's coming up.
Well, we have reached the halfway point of the Cup Series schedule, and we decided it was best to hand out everyone their first semester report cards. Going through the same basic thing we did last time, we'll go through each driver. I'll discuss what their prior grade was and what their new grades are for them. It won't be just this last quarter, it is the whole year, although there is probably a little bit more importance to where they stand right now based on the last quarter. And as last time, it's not 100% based on expectations, but inevitably expectations play a role in their grade. So starting off with same way we did last time, our Daytona 500 with winner Austin Cindric. Last time I gave him a B+. This time I'm going to go ahead and give him a B-. Probably was a little bit high last time. Really at the point, the only significant thing he did was win the Daytona 500, but it is still a pretty significant thing. He is sitting 14th in the standings right now, though. And honestly, I'm pretty impressed that he is that high. Without the win, obviously, he'd be out of the playoffs just because of how the year's shaked out. But I would not have guessed that he'd be 14th in the standings right now. Although in the last 9 weeks, he is 16th in points gained, so a little bit lower, but still pretty solid. Although, especially the last month and a half, his results have certainly been overall better. In the last 6 races, he has 5 top 11 finishes, compared to, I think, just 2 in the first 9 races. So definitely been a better than he was, I think, but I also just think my grade for him was too high before. So sitting at a B-. Last time, Brandon, you gave him a B-. What's he at now?
So for me, I am going to bump it up a little bit here. I'm going to go with a B. Definitely started out the season a little bit slow, minus that Daytona 500 win. But over the last month and a half, if you go back and actually look, last 6 races, it looks like 5 top 11 finishes, only 1 finish outside of that. That was the 34th in the Coke 600, which, with how that race went, I can't really fault him for that. A lot of craziness going on there. So you've seen a lot of improvement out of Cindric over the last month and a half. Obviously the Daytona 500 win helps a lot, but when you're constantly a top 10 threat, which he has been for, the last 6 races, I think that's enough reason to bump him up a little bit in terms of my grade. So we're going with a B.
Still pretty close to each other. Different directions, but I think, like I said, I just overrated him to begin with. Next up is teammate in the 12, Ryan Blaney. Last time I gave him a B+. This time I'm just going to give him a B. Sitting 3rd in standings, which is still solid, although he's only 7th in points gained in the last 9 races. Also, just his overall performance, and this isn't just him, this is certainly kind of a Penske thing as a whole, has not been, other than Cindric, I guess, has not been as strong in the last quarter as it was in the first quarter. And part of that's shown in his laps led. In these last 9 races, he's only led 51 laps compared to 339 in the first 9. I think after the first 9 races, outside of the fact that he's Ryan Blaney and this always seems to happen to him, a lot of people were pretty certain he was going to win a race, and I certainly don't get that general feeling from people now. He certainly isn't near the front as much. Still getting top 10s, top 5s, and still overall pointing pretty well. As I said, he's sitting, second in the standings, but just not as strong of a performance. So I've dropped him down to a B. Last time, Brandon, you gave him a B+. What do you have him at?
So if there was like a grade between a B and a B+, I probably would have done that. Unfortunately, there's not. The consistency's still there. I'm going to go with the B+, although it's very, very close. Much like Cindric, he's shown very good speed over the last month and a half. Only 1 finish outside of the top 12 in that time span, that 29th place finish in the 600. If he had a win, I would definitely feel more comfortable with this.
100%.
Yeah.
I just like it. It's just that was part of what kept him getting in an 8 last time. It just, same thing.
Yeah, I think he's been, a little bit more consistent over these last 9 races as a whole, which is why I'm going to opt to go with the same grade. But again, very close. I think he's in that B+ range. I'm going to keep it a B+, but I can't fault you for dropping it to a B. It's just been, that's where he's at.
Rounding out the Penske trio is Joey Logano. Last time I gave him a B minus, he is sitting 5th in the standings. So he's still up there, and I'm pretty. It's weird. He's been up and down this quarter, but I've given him a B plus here. Just mostly because he has 2 wins. You have 2 wins. Not very many people have 2 wins. Still sitting 5th in the standings, even though, like I said, it's not been certainly as consistent as his teammates. Outside of those 2 wins, he only has one other top 10 finish in the last 9 races. But he is one of just, I believe, 5 drivers with multiple wins so far this year. And, has more wins than the rest of his teammates combined. So, if he just had 1 win, he'd probably be at a B, maybe even a B minus still, but with 2 wins, bumped him up to a B plus. Brandon, last time you gave him a B, what do you have him at?
Yeah, the 2 wins, I'm with you. Kind of hard not to give him a B plus in this situation. Those 2 races that he did win, he was up near the front for a lot of them too. Led 107 laps at Darlington, only led 22 at Gateway, but he was there pretty much the whole time.
Yeah,
Would like to see a little bit more consistency out of him, but again, those 2 wins go a long way in this grade.
Yeah, I think it was after Darlington was Dover where he ran like 20th all day. It's been very weird, and like you said, he certainly was in contention to win those 2 races. Had things work out in his favor in both of them, but was in contention either way, and just went up and took them. The Penske affiliate team of Wood Brothers Racing, we have Harrison Burton. Last time I gave him a D minus. I've bumped him up to a D plus. I almost just did a D. The finishes aren't there, but I certainly feel like I see him running in the top 20, top 15 a lot more than I did the first quarter of the year. He is sitting only 28th in the standings, but I don't remember him and involved as many wrecks the last 9 races, and he runs better. They seem to lose the car later on in the race, but it does feel like he's run better in the last 9 races, so I've bumped him up to a D plus. Last time, Brandon, you gave him a D. What do you have, Matt?
Right now I'm going with a D plus as well. Again, pretty much what you said there. He's looked better. The results might not be there, but I've noticed them more as of late. So they're going in the right direction. Hopefully, as we get into the next couple weeks and months, they could turn that into better results. But at least we're seeing a upward projection for Harrison Burton as of right now.
All right, switching over to Richard Childress Racing, starting off with Austin Dillon. Last time I gave him a B minus. This time I've dropped him down to a C. He's sitting 19th in the standings. Had a rough couple weeks, has plummeted him a few spots, and he's 20th in points gained in the last 9 races. Just 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s. He did nearly win the 600. He would, if he did, he'd have at least a B minus, probably be in the playoffs for now. But instead, he's sitting there and certainly in a must-win situation now. And his points position just constantly is being killed. They just don't get very many stage points. I think it was at Nashville. He was like, Reddick was in the top 15 and Austin Dillon was running out back in like 32nd. And they wound up, I think, finishing top 15 at Nashville, but they just start off so slow every week, it feels, and they have to spend the whole time getting better. And overall, whereas in the first half, I felt like there was a lot of races where he left points on the table. And obviously, like this past weekend at Road America, he left some points on the table. But also just feels like he hasn't been running as strong as he was. So I've dropped him down to a C. Brandon, last time you also gave him a B minus. What do you have him at now?
Yeah, same as you. Going with a C here. I don't think he's running that much worse than he did in the first 9 races, but they haven't gotten better. And I think a lot of these guys in that middle of the pack, they've shown improvement. And Austin Dillon's kind of just plateaued. Haven't seen any improvement throughout the race. When they unload bad, they are bad until the end, and they're not getting stage points, which is part of the reason why they've dropped so much in the points. And then you tack on a bad day like he had at Road America, that just makes it even worse. And then all of a sudden, he went from somebody that, hey, maybe he could race his way in on points to he's in a must-win. So I think Dillon's grade has more to do with what people around him have done than how they've been overall, because again, I think it's been kind of close, but with how everything's going, that's just not going to cut it. So right now we're going to give him a C as well.
Moving on to his teammate Tyler Reddick, just won this past weekend. Had him at a B plus at the quarter mark. I have, despite the win, dropped him down to a B. He's currently sitting 13th in the standings. but in the last 9 races, he is actually 19th in points gained, just one spot ahead of his teammate Austin Dillon. Only has one other top 5 outside of his win, 2 top 10s. And there are certainly a couple races where he was running good and things have happened. Kansas and Charlotte being 2 main ones, but it also just doesn't feel as strong as they were in the first quarter of the year. They're not up front leading as many laps, competing for the wins, especially past like the midway point. So did drop him down just a slight letter grade to a B. Without the win, he'd probably be at a B minus, C plus. But the win stopped him from dropping any further. He's at a B. Last time, Brandon, you also gave him a B plus. What do you have him at now?
And for the same exact reasons, I'm going to drop him down to a B. Definitely not as impressive so far in these, second 9 races of the season. He's been okay, and I'm with you. If he didn't get that win last week, he's probably in that C plus B minus range, but a win does a lot. So that definitely salvages this quarter for him. We'll see what he can do moving forward, but a B for, races 9 to 18 for Tyler Reddick for me as well.
All right, on to Petty GMS, starting off with Ty Dillon. Last time I gave him a C plus. This time I've dropped him down to a C minus. He has fallen to 26th in the standings, 28th in points gained in the last quarter, and only 4 top 20 in the last 9 races. Where in the first quarter of the year he kind of was doing pretty good, finishing top 20. A lot of times 15 to 20th, but still in the top 20. And similar to his brother Austin Dillon, just maybe it's actually even gotten a little bit worse, but certainly just has not gotten any better in these last 9 races. And they've certainly had their fair troubles. I don't remember if he was still in the top 20 after Dirt Bristol, which he might have been since he did get a top 10 there. But he has fallen all the way to 26th in the standings since. It looks like after Dirt Bristol, he was actually 21st. Just nothing. It's been okay, but now probably less than, especially what I had after the first quarter of the year, less than what I expected. So C minus. Last time, Brandon, you also gave him a C plus. What do you have him at now?
I'm also giving him a C minus. Just he hasn't been as good. That's just the simplest way to put it. Still not a bad year for Ty Dillon. Still doing a lot better than I expected him out of that, in that ride. But I'm not noticing him as much in that top 20, and they're definitely not finding ways to eke out those finishes that they were before earlier in the year. So a C minus for me as well.
All right, moving on to his teammate Eric Jones. Last time I gave him a B minus. This time I'm giving him a C plus. He is sitting 18th in the standings, and only has 3 top 10s in the last 9 races, which actually isn't terrible with what I think probably expectations were coming into the year. I think last year in the whole season he only had 5 top 10s to begin with, so to have 3 1/4, definitely solid. He had 6 last year actually, so met half his year's mark in just a quarter of the time. But similar-ish to Austin Dillon and even Tyler Reddick, honestly, like they haven't gotten better in the last 9 weeks, and maybe have gotten a little bit worse. And just, I felt like they really could just have won a race before. And they've had a couple races where they still had some strong runs go away. Charlotte comes to mind, where they went several laps down because the lug, something broke on the time. They couldn't even get it off. But it's certainly now in a must win. He's had a rough couple weeks. He was like 14th in the standings, has fallen all the way to 18th, and just not as solid as he was in the first quarter of the year. Still pretty decent, especially I think with what they did last year. So I have him at a C plus. Last time, Brandon, you gave him a C plus. What do you have him at now?
Yeah, dropping him down to a C. Again, they've fallen off a little bit, not a ton. Still, really, just like his teammate, I'm pretty impressed by what they've done this year. This team was nowhere near this good last year, but moving out of Dirt Bristol, and then you follow that up with almost winning Talladega in the 10th race of the year. You really thought like, hey, they might be on the verge of something. You haven't really gotten that feeling outside of Gateway in this stretch of races. So, still really good year. Definitely in a must-win situation now, but I don't think there's any shame with a C, and that's what we're going with.
All right, moving on to Hendrick Motorsport. Starting off with Kyle Larson. Last time I gave him a C. That certainly, even in hindsight, was probably too low. I went back and forth, made a last minute change here, gave him a B plus. He is fourth in the standings, up I think 5 spots from last quarter. And in the last 9 races, he has gained the second most points. But and this is why, if he had 2 wins, probably would honestly be at least an A minus. But with just 1 win, it was kind of in between the B and the B plus. But they're running good. They just don't necessarily have the full on execution. So B plus is what I have Kyle Larson at. Brandon, last time you gave him a B, what do you have him at?
I'm sticking with the B. If he got a little bit luckier in the 600, maybe that would have been enough to bump me up to a B plus. My problem with him in the first 9 races was they lacked the consistency. They seemed to have race-winning speed, and they would have stuff go wrong, and they wouldn't get that result. Now I feel like they have the consistency, but they definitely feel like they've taken a step back in terms of the speed. I guess you could also throw Sonoma in there for a race that he could have won if they didn't have, the pit
that
road
wasn't
issues.
Bad luck either.
That wasn't bad luck. That was
bad strategy.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't even bad strategy at Sonoma. They had the tire.
Yeah, but even without the tire, I don't think he wins. They didn't move up through the field very well, but once they got behind because they stayed out to win stage 1, they never really recovered from that. They would have gotten a top 10 at least without, probably maybe even a top 5 without the tire, but the tire was like the nail in the coffin.
Regardless, in 9 races, they've only shown me like twice that they've been, really fast, had race-winning speed, and that's just not good enough for me. It's still the same grade that I gave them in the last quarter, but they kind of just swapped out, I feel like, speed for consistency, and in my opinion, if you want a higher grade than that, they kind of have to go together, so we'll see what they could do moving forward.
On to our current points leader, Chase Elliott. Last time, I gave him a B. Said at the time, if he had a win, he'd probably be in an A. And he has 2 wins now. I have him at an A. Points leader, leading the series, an average finish. 2 wins. Could have more wins if things should have got a little bit better. Tied for the lead in wins. Like I said, only 5 drivers with multiple wins right now. I have him at an A. One of the few drivers I have at an A. Certainly still has left a little bit on the table, but I think most people have. It's still been a solid year. I think it's going to be a fight. I think it's going to come down to him and Ross, honestly. I think they have a little bit more consistency than Blaney does. A little bit better finish. I think it's going to come down to him and Ross for the regular season championship. But, I mean, points leader, like I said, at best average finish in the series. So he gets an A from me. Last time, Brandon, you gave him a B+. What do you have him at now?
I'm going with an A-. They've definitely showed the speed, and I think they've been okay in the consistency department. But they have just driven me crazy with some of their inconsistencies. The pit crew is probably the one that's holding me back from giving them an A. At the end of the day, this isn't just a driver grade; it's a team grade, and they've had issues and clutch moments in pit road. They even did this past week at Road America. I don't think it cost them the race because I think Tyler Reddick was just that much better at the end. He probably would have caught up to Chase and passed him in the end anyways. But he had a decent sized lead and. You can't be making those mistakes. It didn't hurt them that much then, but there's been a number, of amount of times where they've screwed up. Sonoma, one that comes to mind when they had the issue on the pit stop and Chase had to back up because they didn't have the wheel tight. So they have to clean it up.
And then they didn't even back him up all the way either.
That too. you gotta pay attention. Him up
all the way, he still probably comes out top 5 in that stage instead of at the very back. So
that's my grade is more on the team as a whole than Chase. If we're just giving a driver grade, I think Chase gets an A, but as a team, A-. They do have a little bit to improve on.
Yeah, I mean, if this is in terms of room for improvement, I'm not going to give anybody an A, to be honest. But, I mean, yeah, I was in between. I was close. So, moving over to his teammate in the 24, William Byron. Last time I gave him A. One of 2 drivers I gave an A. This time, though, he's all the way down to a B-. He is sitting 10th in the standings, has had a horrible last quarter, 21st in points collected, just a single top 10 finish. And there's not even a ton of races where you go, well, he was running top 5 and then something bad happened. Obviously, Darlington comes to mind. And there are certainly a couple races in there where he was running top 10 and had issues happening. It was earlier in the race, but he was leading at Kansas when he had a tire go down. But they certainly have less speed than Chase and Kyle Larson do. And 2 wins is still good, but, I mean, it's been so little of nothing since then that I have him at a B minus. Last time, Brandon, you gave him an A minus. What do you have him at now?
He's going pretty far down in comparison to where I had him before. I'm also going a B minus. I know those 2 wins he had was in the first 9 races, but that's what's saving him as a whole from going into that C grade. They have to figure something out. I think with the way the points too are shaping up right now,
I
they
mean,
don't even have the playoff points to be safe in that
well,
first round.
they're
Yeah,
at risk of getting none
yeah,
for the
that's
regular season championship.
that too.
Regular
It's
season points.
been
So
really, really bad. The 2 wins saves him from something worse, but I can't go any higher than a B minus. And again, that's really just because he has those 2 wins already.
all right, on to the last Hendrick Motorsports car of Alex Bowman. Last time I gave him a B, and similar to William Byron, although certainly not as bad, just has had a relatively quiet, not that great last quarter. Sitting ninth in the standings, but like I said, outside of the win, his finishes aren't that much worse than the first quarter. But they struggle so much at the beginning of races. They're similar to like Austin Dillon getting killed in the stage point department. Better than William Byron at closing out the stuff, but I have him at a C plus because at the end of the day, he doesn't have 2 wins. He's barely ahead of Byron in the standings, but Byron does have the extra win that kind of keeps Byron at a B minus. So I have Alex Bowman going from a B to a C plus. Last time, Brandon, you had him at B minus. What do you have him at now?
I'm going to keep him at that B minus. He's pretty much been the same for me. I haven't seen as much of a drop off with him as I have with, say, William Byron. So this is kind of what I expected with Alex Bowman. Not impressive, but I'm also used to him at this point in the year being in the teens. So you can kind of look at it halfway through the year, him being ninth in points, a little bit of an improvement in what you've seen in the past out of him. So we'll keep it at a B minus for right now.
All right, moving over to Roush Fenway Kozlowski Racing. Last time, Brad Kozlowski got a D plus from me. This time, he's dropped to a D. I honestly, seriously considered giving him a D minus, just because this last quarter was so bad. But the first quarter had enough that he would. I don't remember exactly where it'd be. I think he'd be like sitting 23rd in the standings if he didn't have the 100-point penalty. But in the last quarter, he does just straight up sit at 30th in points gained. They do have some speed there. Certainly still running behind Chris Buescher, but usually still running within 5-ish spots of him. But they cannot finish a race to save their lives. So I have him at a D. Last time, Brandon, you gave him a C. What do you have him at now?
I'm also going with a D. Again, same reasons as you. They've at least shown a little bit of speed, but in those races where they've shown speed, they haven't been able to close it out. Even Sonoma, which that wasn't their fault, they got caught at a bad time in the pit cycle with the yellow flag. He probably could have finished top 5, did end up finishing 10th there, but really outside of that, we've seen Brad more or less in the teens on a good day. Again, it's not what you expect out of Brad Keselowski. I know Roush is rebuilding. It's a new team for him. He has ownership on his plate. But when you look at what Chris Buescher's done, you can't help but feel, at the very least, slightly disappointed, and probably more at how his season's gone so far.
Speaking of Chris Buescher, last time I gave him a C plus. This time I have him up to a B minus. He was almost a B, but at the end of the day, I know he did miss the race, but he's still sitting 22nd in points. Even with that race, would maybe be 20th. But I mean, they've been pretty impressive the last month and a half. He is probably on the best overall performance streak of his career. In the last 9 races, his 3 top 10s are more than Bubba, Brad, Chase Briscoe, William Byron, Austin Dillon, and Eric Almirola, and are the same amount as Tyler Reddick, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, Eric Jones, Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, and Martin Truex Jr. He is getting up there and competing with them more than we've ever seen, really. They need a little bit more I don't think they're going to win a race this year. Probably need a little bit more next year to truly compete. But, I've raised him up from a C plus to a B minus, almost at a B. But when you're sitting in a win and you're in, and you're still not in the awful car, have a hard time giving you a B when you're that far out. So last time, Brandon, you also gave him a C plus. What do you have him at now?
I am going with a B minus for Buescher as well. You look at what he's done, like even just over the course of the quarter, but just over the last couple races. There's a not so distant reality where he's on like a streak of 5 straight top tens. He was running good enough in the 600 before he went flipping through the infield. I can't help but think he possibly could have gotten a top 10 at Gateway if he didn't have COVID. I mean, Zane Smith got a top 20 and he had never driven a cup car before, so that's not crazy to think Buscher could have done a little bit better. And at Nashville, he was in position to get a top 10 before his crew left a tire loose and it came off out on track. And in those races as well, you have a second at Sonoma and a sixth at Road America. They've definitely been improving. Again, with a little bit of luck, he could be on a streak of 5 straight top tens, in my opinion. So they're going in the right direction. Have to clean up a little bit. I'm with you. A little hard to give him a B since he is in a must-win situation in terms of making the playoffs. But overall, really good year so far for Chris Buscher.
All right, moving on to another guy who's been, I think, pretty impressive in this last quarter. Michael McDowell. Last time I gave him a C minus. This time I have him all the way up to a B minus, sitting 21st in points. Already set his career high in top tens. He is currently beating his best average finish of a season by 3.9 spots, and his 5 top tens in the last 9 races rank him tied 6th in the series. The only reason I don't have him at a B, honestly, is because last year he also was really hot early on and then cooled down. If he even remotely keeps up this performance, he's going to at least get a B at the end of the year. I don't know that team's ever capable of truly competing down the stretch to be top 16 in points. But if they keep up this speed and have a hull clean next season, they'll be in a fight for the top 16 in points. That top 16 might not matter if we wind up with the winners like we have this year. But it's certainly been the most impressive year of Michael McDowell's career, so I have him at a B minus. Brandon, last time you also had him at a C minus. What do you have him at now?
I know I just said I couldn't give Chris Buscher a B because he doesn't have a win, but I'm going there with Michael McDowell. This team
is a different team too. That's a thing.
Yeah,
right?
This team is doing things I've never thought it was capable of doing. Even with like what he did last year, I think you felt, they're riding off the momentum of the Daytona 500. I know he had a really good run at Homestead, but there were some more favorable races there at the beginning of the year for McDowell with the Daytona road course. I'm very impressed. One finish outside of the top 20 in the last 9 races, and he had some of the best races of his career. I mean, he was very competitive at Gateway, even though they slid back and finished 18th. Finished in the top 5 at Sonoma. Probably could have had a top 10 if it wasn't for, I want to say, like Chris Buscher's tire coming off at Nashville. Like, he was very much in position there. Or actually, that was the later yellow. Whatever brought out the last yellow that set up that late restart. That's what really cost McDowell the top 10 there. But it's a really great run from him. They're doing things that I did not expect out of them. Well, I think sure. Buscher's with a decent team. I don't, obviously, front row I wouldn't put in that category. They're not awful, but they're not in the category, in my opinion, as Roush. So just being able to do what he's done, that's enough for me to give him a B.
Yeah, part of it too, we have seen a couple guys this year get on a good streak and then just completely fizzle out. Mm-hmm. So, but if McDowell does honestly, if he keeps up this performance, he straight up could be at an A minus by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Like it's so remarkable to see the kind of consistency and speed they've had. Obviously, I've had a couple road courses where he's been very solid at, but still, even those road courses, probably a better run than we've really seen from him at road courses before. So he could sneak out a win, like he did finish 3rd at Sonoma. I don't know that Watkins Glen or the Indy road course really going to suit out him well for a win, but we are going also to 2 more plate style tracks where he's won before, so they could sneak out a win, but they have been very impressive. Moving on to his teammate Todd Gilliland. Last time I gave him a C+, this time down to a C-, 29th in standings, which I think he was probably a favorite for bottom 3 in the standings to begin with. He is still pretty good at finishing races. He is 5th in laps completed. But I think, to me, the big thing is, whereas last quarter, him and McDowell, I think, were separated by 1 spot in the standings. They were pretty close. Since then, McDowell's gotten pretty damn good, and Todd Gilliland really hasn't improved at all. So I have to drop him down to a C-. Last time, you gave him a C+. What do you have him at now?
I did drop him down, not as much as you. I'm going down to a C. At the end of the day, he's still a rookie. Maybe he's hitting a bit of a rookie wall. There are a lot more races and a lot more laps run in the Cup Series than the Truck Series. He hasn't dropped off a ton, if any at all, but he hasn't improved either, which is why I'm going down to a C there. If he had shown even a little bit of improvement, like not to what McDowell's done, but even a little bit, like over the last month, his best finish is 22nd. If he had one or two top 20 sprinkled in there, maybe I could justify going with a C because he is a rookie, or a C plus. But just not having that improvement right now, while he is keeping the car clean, it's just nowhere close to what Michael McDowell's doing. So a little bit of a downgrade here with a C, but still, a pretty solid year for Todd Gilliland.
I mean, he's getting the laps in, which is really what you hope for the most. On to Joe Gibbs Racing, starting off with Denny Hamlin. Last time I gave him a D. This time I have him all the way up to a B. Was it a B minus? Because obviously they're sitting 20th in standings. It's still not where you'd want to see him. You're still at the beginning of the year shocked that he's been there. But even outside of his 2 wins, and I think he still only has one other top 5 than that, they've had speed at a lot of races, and things that are not necessarily their fault come undone. Unfortunate time cautions and other issues. I went back and forth between a B and a B minus. I have a hard time giving anyone with 2 wins, especially on the trajectory that he's on, anything lower than a B minus. But just come playoff time, if they keep us up, they're going to straight up be a contender. So I have him at a B. Last time you also gave him a D. What do you have him going up to?
Yeah, I can't go as high as a B. I am going to go with the B minus for him. I'm with you. I was really flip-flopping between what to give him. Ultimately, when you have 2 wins and one of them's the Coca-Cola 600, I don't care how you got it. He did get lucky there, but a major's a major. Very hard for me to give him anything lower than a B minus at this point. We'll see how he does in the the next 9 races and then that stretch run into the playoffs. It very well could be higher next time around, but for right now, it's a B minus for Hamlin.
And I will say with them, I mean, they basically said straight up they're not going for anything other than wins. So I would not be surprised if we don't see him even crack the top 15 in points, because they know they're not going to get to the top 10 with just 8 races left. They're going to give it their all just to get wins, because that's how they're going to get the playoff points. So I would not be surprised if we don't see the numbers outside of the wins change that much. On to Kyle Busch. Last time I gave him a B plus. Gave him a B plus this time. It's just maybe it's been a little bit weaker in the last quarter than the first quarter, but still, I believe in the last 9 races has led the series in laps led. Has certainly had races where they could have gotten away with a win, that they haven't. And I still think week to week he has the most speed of any of the Toyotas. I think the recent Toyota struggles have certainly hurt his chance at a regular season championship, but he still leads all the Toyotas in points, and this has been the most consistently impressive of them. So I have him staying at a B plus. Last time, Brandon, you gave him a B plus. What do you have him at now?
Yeah, I'm dropping him down to a B. The last 3 races in general have been awful. You have 2 road courses in there, which Toyota, for whatever reason, really odd, but they're just bad on the road courses.
They were fine at COTA. They were fine.
I don't understand what's going on there, and it's not just a Kyle Busch thing. I don't think they've had any top 10s in those last 2 road races.
They were better at Road America than Sonoma, but not significantly better.
No. And then, I mean, in the middle of that, too, those 2 road course races, you have a terrible pit call at the end of the day that ruined a top 5 performance at Nashville. You also, even if you go back to that 4th race in this stretch here, I don't want to say he choked away Gateway, but he was in position to win that race, and he, didn't get the best Kyle Busch out of it, I guess you could say. Like, he had a chance to win there, didn't do it. Had a chance to win the 600, but you can't really fault him for that. Late race restarts. Hamlin had fresher tires there at the end. That is what it is, whatever. But last 3 races have just been awful. If they went slightly different, I'd probably still have him at a B plus, but I guess when you're going right into the end of the grading cycle and that's how you end it, it's hard not to look at it and kind of scratch your head and give you something a little lower.
To his teammate Martin Truex Jr. recently announcing, I mean, it was a couple weeks ago at this point, but still recently announcing he is in fact coming back next year. Had him at a B minus, and I'm keeping him at a B minus. He is sitting 7th in standings, but has the 4th most points gained in the last quarter. Certainly doesn't have the speed of either Denny or Kyle, honestly. But they're still consistent. Like I said, 4th most points in the last quarter, only being outpointed by, I think, 3 guys that people have as championship favorites, being Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott. They have things go wrong for them a lot at the end of the race, but still solid. So, and I didn't have him at a super high grade to begin with, so keeping him at a B minus. Last time, Brandon, you gave him a C. What do you have him at now?
Yeah, we're gonna bump up to that B minus grade here. He's looked a lot better over these 9 races than he did in the first 9 races. Much like Kyle Busch, if he had a better last stretch here before these grades, he might have even been a B, but not the performance you'd expect out of Martin Truex Jr. on the road courses. That, again, probably more of a manufacturer thing than a driver thing. And just like Kyle, they made a horrible pit call at Nashville. They had an easy top 5 there, and they just made the wrong call. And you got to factor all those things in there. Not a plus moment there by the crew chief for either one of those guys. So maybe if he was a little better, it'd be a little bit of a higher grade. But with how they ended this stretch, we're going to go with a B minus. Still improvement out of Truex Jr. over these races. That's what you want to see.
On to the last of the Joe Gibbs Toyotas, Christopher Bell. Last time I had him at a C plus. This time I have him up to a B. 8th in standings, 5th most points gained in the last quarter, 9 top 10s in the last 13 races. And honestly, his only races outside of the top 10 were races where Toyota struggled in those last 13. Well, 3 of the 4. Martinsville, Sonoma, Road America. I don't know that at least a Joe Gibbs Toyota finished in the top 10 in any of those races. And then Talladega, which is Talladega. He's been very consistent. Doesn't quite have race-winning speed. Even at Kansas, where Toyota's dominated, he was like the 4th Toyota. They need a little bit more to get some speed, but right now, I think it's possible straight up he passes Truex in the standings, which would leave Truex pretty vulnerable to missing if he doesn't get a win. So I'm going to give him a little bit higher of a grade than Truex gave him a B. Last time, Brandon, you also had him at a C+. What do you have him at?
I'm also going with a B here. They've probably been the most consistent out of the Toyotas, while they haven't shown that race-winning speed. I'm with you in terms of that playoff bubble. You know, he's got to keep doing what he's been doing, or else he's going to be the one really sweating it. I think there's a large potential of him running down Truex over these next coming races. So we'll see what he can keep doing. Pretty solid. I'd like to see him, get that jump and potentially contend for wins more often. It's something they very well might possibly need as we keep having these random winners. We'll definitely see what that looks like after Atlanta. But for right now, we'll give him a B as well.
Going to Loudon in a few short time here. I don't remember if it's next week or the week after. But it's a pretty good track for him. So maybe gets a win there. The only full-time driver for Rick Ware is next. Cody Ware. Had him at a C last time and have him at a C this time. He is 32nd in standings, though this was probably the safest prediction you could have made, is that he'd be 32nd in standings. His average finish, though, has gone up 2.6 spots compared to last year, and there are more competitive cars than there have been at any point, really, in recent history. So going up 2.6 spots, they've been consistent. I don't remember really him being the moving chicane. Those cars kind of were doing basically exactly what I expected from him. I'm going to give him a C. Last time, Brandon, you gave him a D+. What do you have him at now?
I know expectations do factor into this. I just can't give him a C- based on, he's still finishing in the 30s or in the low 20s there. It's just, I can't give him that C-. I'm still going to give him a D+, but it's nice to see him not being that moving chicane that we're used to seeing him as over the last couple of years. He's become, for lack of a better word, I guess, competent for where he's driving. Not a factor, not a problem on the track, which is good, but I just can't give him that high of a grade given the results, even if it is for Rick Ware Racing still.
And only 13 points behind Corey LaJoy in the last 9 races.
Oof.
Moving on to Stuart Haas Racing, starting off with Kevin Harvick. Gave him a C- last time, bumped him up to a B- this time. He is 11th in the standings, first guy out, but he is tied for the most top 10s in the last 9 races, but he's only 8th in points gained. They usually aren't running strong enough to get a bunch of stage points. Uh, Only 3 top 5s in the last 9 races, which isn't terrible, but more importantly, and I think this speaks a lot to his ability to necessarily win a race, a single lap led in the last 9 races. So I have him at a B- because they've certainly improved, but they're still probably less than what you would expect from them. They are sitting out, but he has just been so much better than he was in the first quarter that I felt like he should jump up at least a letter grade. But I was between a B- and a C+, but I do have him at a B-. Brandon, you also had him at a C- last time. What do you have him at now?
I'm going to go up to a C+ with Kevin Harvick. I'm going to be honest, part of that is probably because he is out of the playoffs. And at the end of the day, he is Kevin Harvick. You don't expect him to be in this situation. I like where they're going as a team. I don't know if it's going to be enough for him to get into the playoffs, given just the amount of winners. He's probably going to have to win a race because I just don't see him running down Christopher Bell or Martin Truex Jr. But we'll see. This would be something looking back in a couple races here where I might be like, yeah, no, I was wrong. I should have been higher. But right now, because he's out of the playoffs, even with that improvement, I got to go with a C+.
All right, on to the 10 car of Eric Almirola, the only driver we know will not be in the same ride next year. Sits 12th in the standings, but only 1 top 10 in the last 9 races. And after a pretty consistent start, the rest of the field has made gains, and they just don't seem like they have. Has gone from what felt like a pretty safe-ish playoff spot to a spot where, I mean, he'd be starting to get the hot seat even if there weren't as many winners, because 12th on back, they're all very close in points. Is sitting 15th in points gained in the last quarter, so not awful. But like I said, not one top 10, single top 5 as well. 0 laps led. The only guy in the top 27 in points gained in the last quarter with 0 laps led, and just very. If you ignore last year, I feel like pretty in line with what you would expect from Eric Almirola. So I have him at a C. Last time, Brandon, you had him at a B-. What do you have him at now?
I also have him at a C. He's definitely gone backwards over these last 9 races. Not a ton, but he has. He's behind Harvick in points now. Obviously, Kevin Harvick, better driver than Eric Almirola, even at this stage of his career, but I can't give him the same grade as Harvick. Or at least Harvick feels like he's going up. Almirola definitely feels like he's going down. Maybe he could change that when we go to New Hampshire in a couple weeks. He did win there last year, but I'm not holding my breath on that. I think this is what you're going to see out of Almirola the rest of the way. Kind of that average C-level driver as he closes out his career.
All right, on to Chase Briscoe. Gave him a B+ last time, dropped him down to a C+ this time. He is 16th in the standings. Does have a win, so at least right now he's not in danger of missing. But in the last quarter, he is only 23rd in points gained. Only a single top 5 and top 10. And he was not as good as Reddick or Chastain in the beginning of the year, but felt like maybe that guy that was going to burst onto the scene and compete for a bunch. And he's had some moments, almost won the Bristol Dirt Race, was certainly in a position to win the 600. In fact, the 600 is his only top 5 or top 10 still, even after having spun. But they just, similar to whereas Harvick's gotten a lot better in the last 9 races, Eric Almirola, Chase Briscoe have not. And Chase Briscoe has been, I think, pretty disappointed based on, Eric Almirola almost kind of makes sense as what you expect. He kind of just reverted to his mean, but Chase Briscoe looked like he was going to join the new group of contenders and just hasn't. So dropped him down to a C+. Last time, Brandon, you had him at a B. What do you have him at now?
I also have him at a C. I've been disappointed with how he's run over these last 9 races.
At just a regular C?
Just the regular C. Yeah, it's been because I'm very disappointed in how he's run. He's only had 1 race where, he showed remote speed, and I've seen him make a lot of mistakes over these last couple of races, especially Nashville. That's the one where you just kind of look at it and you scratch your head. A rookie mistake, going off in there, misjudging the turn, taking yourself out. Did win me a couple $100 because I had Kevin Harvick in a head-to-head matchup. So from a betting standpoint, I am happy that happened. But I'm very disappointed. Maybe I'm just living in the moment with him. Maybe it's not fair to Chase Briscoe, but when it looks like you're about to take that step and make yourself a next, or maybe not a next level driver, but bring yourself into that next level of drivers. He's gone backwards, and it's really, I don't want to say shocking, but it's disappointing to see what he's done over the last 9 races.
All right, going off to one guy that I'm pretty sure we're gonna have the same grade for, Cole Custer. Last time I gave him an F. This time he still has an F. If I wanted to give him an F minus, I could have, but I'm just gonna keep F as the lowest grade. 27th in the standings, only ahead of Ty Dillon, Todd Gilliland, or sorry, that was 27th in the last overall 9 races as well. Right now, like I said, 27th standing, only behind Harrison Burton, Todd Gilliland, Brad Keselowski, Corey LaJoy, Cody Ware for full-time guys. Two of those guys, Corey LaJoy and Cody Ware, not in any ride they expect to be competitive. 2 rookies and one guy who has a 100-point penalty. We've talked a lot about him. It doesn't make any sense. Only 4 top 15s in the whole year. Like, Almirola and Briscoe last quarter have certainly been disappointing. Harvick still maybe a little bit less than what was expected. Cole Custer is driving some different car. I'm convinced of it. There's no other logical explanation. It doesn't make any sense. So I have him at an F. Brandon, you had him at a D+. Where did he drop to?
Yeah, like if I could just make upgrades, I'd give him a Q for questioning why the hell something hasn't changed, whether it be the driver or the crew chief. I'm obviously going with an F. It's just awful. You can't explain it. I know you've always said it doesn't make any sense how he could be so good in the Xfinity series and then get to the Cup series and this is what you get. And, likewise, I'm on the same boat there. It's also just unbelievable that they haven't made a change at the crew chief position at this point. And I'm going to keep saying that until they do. And from the way they're acting, I think we'll be saying that for the whole rest of the season. I don't expect them at this point to make a change in season because they're just not even teasing it. And they have to do something. I don't see this turning around at all. It's one of the most puzzling just teams in the sport right now. I don't know what the hell's going on there. It's an F, and there's no other way you could slice it.
All right, moving on to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Had him at an F last time, was very disappointed in his performance. Do have him up to a C this time, 24th in points. Much better performance than the first quarter of the year. He is 18th in points gained in the last quarter, which is, especially for that team, pretty good. He also, in this time span, had a career-long top 10 streak. He has fizzled out a little bit, which is why I went back and forth between actually a C+ and a C. But I mean, he's already kind of, in terms of raw numbers, met what you would expect him to do in a year. They still need some more consistency and need some speed again, but he's at a C right now. Brandon, you had him at a D last time. What do you have him at now?
Yeah, I'm also going with a C. He has kind of cooled off from that hot stretch that he was on. That team looks like the team it should have been at the beginning of the year, I guess you could say. This is probably what you would expect out of JTG Doherty Racing. Again, really impressive stretch there at the beginning of these 9 races for the quarter. Kind of cooled off, but it's what you expect. I think they've really turned their season around. Got to give them credit for that. So a C for Ricky Stenhouse and his team.
All right, on to Justin Haley, the only full-time driver for Colleague. Had him at a D+ last time. Bumped him up to a C. He's sitting 22nd in standings, ahead of several people that he probably shouldn't be ahead of. They did have a top 5 at Darlington. The team certainly seems to have more speed than earlier in the year, although Colleague as a whole and across both the series still struggling to get consistency. But I looked at it and I was like, well, if Ricky Stenhouse gets to see right now, certainly has more top 5s, top 10s than Justin Haley, or at least more top 10s. Justin Haley is ahead of him in standings, so I decided to also give Justin Haley a C. You had him at a C- last time, Brandon. What do you have him at now?
Yeah, I also have him at a C. Don't really know what to make of this team still. I kind of wish they had better results in their second car, just to get a gauge of where everyone's at. It's weird, if there was a driver that you could probably give an incomplete to, it might be Justin Haley, because you just don't know. I feel like they should be better. I really do, but he hasn't been bad, so I can't give him anything lower than what I had in the first quarter. I'd like to see some improvement still, just try to get a better idea of where they're at, but we'll go with a C so far.
All right, on to Corey LaJoy. Last time I had him at a D+. I've dropped him down to a D. He's 31st in the standings, which again, probably where you'd expect him to be. And the team has its occasional top 20 run, but still off of what I expected from them. Just the way that Spire talked about this car and how it was going to level the playing field, and it has, just not for them. So I have him at a D. Last time, Brandon, you already had him at a D. What do you have him at now?
I'm keeping him at a D. He hasn't really done anything to make me move that up, so not much for me to say about this team. They are what they are, a 31st place team, so we're going to keep it that way in terms of the grading.
All right, next up, 2311, starting off with Bubba Wallace. I had him at a D last time. I've bumped him up to a D+. The team definitely has more speed. He certainly has more speed. But this is still a team grade, and that this team's execution has been worse than maybe any I've ever seen before. They could be fighting, they'd certainly be in the top 20 bare minimum if they could finish where they would run, but every week something seems to go wrong. I don't know what to make of this crew swap. It was kind of reported that it was the whole team, but it turned out seems to not be the case. It was just a couple guys swapping around. But I mean, if I'm Christopher Bell, I don't want anyone from this team because this has just been awful. But at the end of the day, they still had some more speed. I've been more impressed with them than I was in the first quarter of the year. So since I gave them a D, gonna give them a D+ now. Brandon, you gave them a D+ last time. What do you have them at now?
I'm going to give him a D+, and I want to make it clear that's not a reflection on the driver. That is a reflection on everybody else on that team. Bubba himself, if we're just giving a driver grade, he's probably in that C, maybe even C+. He's done, everything he could do. There's been a number of races where he probably should have gotten results 10 to 15 places better than what he ultimately ended up getting, and that falls back on the team. And because this is a team grade, I have to give him a D+, but again, no knock on Bubba Wallace. This is just a situation of the parts and pieces around him that give him that grade. He's been a lot better than what that grade shows.
Honda's teammate Kurt Busch did get a win. So certainly in a much better spot than he was in the first quarter, where I gave him a C-, have him up to a B-. The team is 15th in the standings. They, like I said, they have a win. They have more raw speed, but they still do have some struggles with week-to-week consistency. Based on the current trajectory of the team, I expect this to at least be a B by the next time we do it. But just because there was that rough stretch, they did sink pretty low in the standings and are still only 15th. I'm going to have them at a B-. Brandon, last time you had him at a C+, what do you have him at now?
One of those ones where I wish I could make up my grade and put it in between. I'm going to go with a B-. The win helps. I need to see a little bit more consistency out of them. In terms of the whole team, I think Kurt's got more speed. It's kind of like Bubba, where I think the team's holding him back more than the driver, but definitely seen improvement out of him, which is good. That win's huge, and that wasn't like a fluky win. He dominated that race, led 116 laps at Kansas. Best showing of the year by far. I'm with you. I think we're going to see that team improve as the rest of the year goes on, but for right now, we're going to go with a B-.
All right, Ross Chastain, one of the two drivers I gave an A to last time, and one of the two drivers I'm giving an A to this time. Third in the standings, has the lead or is tied for the lead for most wins, top 5s, top 10s, has led a lot of laps, and in the last 9 races has collected the most points. They still, like everyone else, have some consistency issues this year, but I mean, especially compared to, it's almost an A+, honestly. If he had, maybe raced a little bit cleaner, collected a couple more top 5s, it doesn't feel like they are necessarily as strong as they were on that really hot run in the beginning of the year, where there were like 4 or 5 races in a row. You're like, man, this guy could have won all of them. But they're still among the top of the field, if not the top of the field. So he gets an A. Last time, Brandon, you also gave him A. I believe he was your only guy that got an A last time. Is your only guy that gets an A this time?
Yeah, he is. Even though he hasn't had that race-winning speed, I guess, over the last month or so, he's only had 2 races in these last 9 races where he finished outside the top 10. One of them was that Coca-Cola 600 where he got in a wreck. I think it was in that 4-wide wreck racing for the win on that first green white checkered. Yeah. So that is what it is.
He restarted the last restart in the front row, but this car was dead.
Yeah. So 15th place finish there. His other finish outside of the top 10 in this stretch was when he was racing for the lead on a restart at Darlington, which I believe was after he won the stage. Very well could have won that race too. Ended up finishing 30th. So they have had top 10 speed just throughout these last 9 races. They do have the win at Talladega in that span as well. And as a whole team, I mean, like the problems that they've had, I use problems loosely here. They've, just been Ross pushing it a little too hard. I don't think it's a team thing, obviously. And, when you're just getting top 10 after top 10 after top 10, I I would be shocked if they don't end up winning at least one more race over the course of the
Same.
rest of the season.
Same.
Yeah, they're still right there. I haven't seen any, downtrend in terms of just them running consistently, even if they've maybe taken half a step back in terms of how fast they've been. So A for Ross, definitely 100%. This is obviously, I don't even know if you can consider them a surprise so far this year, because just how well they've done. But from the start of the year, when we started at Daytona, did not expect this team to be where it is at, and they've just continued to keep up that momentum throughout the whole year. So still an A for Ross Chastain.
Daniel Suarez, his teammate. Last time, our last driver we're going over, I gave him a B minus, and I've literally sat here and changed this grade 5 times while doing this. I know he has a win, but I'm still gonna give him a B minus. 17th in the standings, 17th in points collected in the last quarter. This is a team grade as well, and they certainly have left a lot of speed on the track, which kind of both hurts and helps their grade. Honestly, if we had reached this at any other point, there's a 50-50 shot this was a B instead, but I'm gonna give them a B minus just because they haven't been as good as Ross either. Although certainly have been picking it up lately. If they can continue to run where they've been running, and then actually finish where they've been running, I mean, honestly, this could even almost be an A minus easily by the time we do this again. They just have to finish better. They have to finish where they're running. Last time, Brandon, you also had a B minus. What do you have for him now?
Yeah, I'm still going with the B minus, although it's close. They're probably a broken jack and at Gateway and a wreck in the Coke 600 from being a B or a B plus. But again, team thing. The drivers made some mistakes. The team's made some mistakes. And then when you factor in what his teammates done, there's probably they're leaving something on the table, just given how Ross has run this year. So still really good year for Daniel Suarez. Really cool to see him get that win. Going to be interesting to see what he could do moving forward into the playoffs. But we're going to go with a B minus right now. And I'm with you. If they keep doing what they're doing, like over the last 3 races, a win, a 15th, and a 5th, if they can keep getting those results versus the 20s, the 30s that they had because of issues, they're probably going to be in that B plus A minus range before too long.
All right, and those are our first semester grades for the Cup drivers this year. Pretty similar, some differences, some big changes for sure from what we saw in the first quarter, and I don't expect them to change as much this next quarter. I think there will be some people that continue to go up, some people that continue to go down, but I think we've started to see kind of what everyone's got.
Mm-hmm.
Next time we do this, we will be 1 week into the playoffs because we'll do this with 9 weeks to go. So we'll have an idea of who's already maybe locked into the next round, and have an idea of how people have started their run to the playoffs. So excited to see how this season continues to plan out. It's been just such a great season, from the races to just the level, the playing field. There are years where I think Road America in Gluck's poll was, I want to say, the 3rd lowest race of the year, behind Texas and Martinsville, and it was still not a bad race. Like, it was not great, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't awful. So it's just, I think, a testament to how good this year's been.
Yeah, I'm with you. Really great year. Some of these runs that you're seeing out of people like right now, these mid to lower tier teams, it has like an old school feel. It's almost like you're back in the 90s where you could have guys just randomly show up on any given weekend and unload a car that can contend for a win. So definitely a breath of fresh air. Really cool to see, the Eric Jones and the Michael McDowells of the world put together top 10, even top 5 runs on occasion. So definitely like where the sport's headed. And it's going to be real interesting to see how the run to the playoffs unfold and the playoffs once we get there. So that'll do it for our grades. If you are interested in any more content from us, go check out our podcast, Bernie Breakdown, available on Spotify and all other podcasting platforms. But until next time, thanks for listening, and we will catch you out there on the track. Hi, Brandon Monroe here. Thanks for watching our video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our new content.